The way you handle money might look stupid to others, but it actually makes perfect sense. Most people think bad money decisions come from stupidity. But what if I told you there's no such thing as crazy behavior with money? If you've ever looked at someone and thought, why would anyone do that with money? This video is about you. We've finished learning money through ancient wisdom. Now we're stepping into how money actually shapes the human mind. Welcome to the psychology of money. Quick favor before we go deeper. If you want to understand why people think differently about money, like this video and subscribe. It helps this message reach the people who need it most. Morgan Housel says this: your personal experience controls about 80% of how you think about money, even though it represents maybe 0.000000001% of what's actually happened in the world. In simple terms, we all think we see the full picture, but we're only seeing our tiny corner of it. Imagine two people. One grew up in wealth. Money was stable. Food was guaranteed. Risk felt exciting. The other grew up poor. Money was fragile. One bad month could destroy everything. Risk felt dangerous. Now ask both of them about investing, saving, or borrowing. They'll give opposite answers, and both will feel completely right. Same thing with generations. Someone who lived through inflation never trusts cash. Someone who lived through stability can't imagine prices spiraling out of control. An Australian who hasn't seen a recession in 30 years has lived a reality no American has. Someone who survived war or economic collapse carries scars you can't learn from books. As investor Mike Batnick said, some lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood. Now here's where judgment usually shows up. Americans spend more on lottery tickets than on movies, music, books, and video games combined. And most of those tickets are bought by poor people. People say, that's stupid. Why waste $400 on lottery tickets when you can't raise $400 in an emergency? But here's the truth. If your life already feels hopeless, if saving feels pointless, if you were never born into opportunity, you're not buying a ticket. You're buying a dream. And if you were born inside the dream, you'll never understand why someone else pays for it. So maybe the question isn't, why are people so bad with money? Maybe the real question is, what have they lived through that I haven't? We're all making decisions based on the era we were born into, the crises we survived, the security we had or never had. That doesn't make us smarter. It makes us different. The danger isn't making mistakes with money. The danger is believing your experience is universal. Because once you think you've figured out how the world works, the world humbles you. We all do strange things with money. Not because we're reckless, not because we're stupid, but because no one is crazy. We're all just reacting to a world we experienced very differently. People love to believe success is earned and failure is deserved. But what if that's not true? Quick favor before we continue. If you want clearer money thinking and fewer financial regrets, like this video and subscribe now. This one will change how you judge success forever. Think about it. Two people work equally hard. One becomes wildly successful. The other barely survives. We don't ask what else was at play. We just say, he was smart, he was lazy, and we move on. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Luck and risk are siblings. Same force, same power, different direction. Every outcome in life is shaped not just by effort, but by things completely outside our control. Let's talk about a 3-year-old boy. In 1968, there were 303 million high school-aged kids in the world. About 18 million lived in the US. About 270,000 lived in Washington State. Around 100,000 lived in Seattle. And only 300 attended a school called Lakeside. Lakeside was one of the only schools in the world with a computer. One of those 300 students? Bill Gates. He and a friend spent countless hours obsessing over that machine. That obsession became confidence. That confidence became Microsoft. Bill Gates later said, if there had been no Lakeside, there would be no Microsoft. Start with 303 million. End with 300. That's 1 in a million luck. Now here's the part people don't like to talk about. There was a third friend. Same intelligence. Same obsession. Same ambition. His name was Kent. Before graduating high school, Kent died in a mountaineering accident. Each year, about 36 people die that way in the US. The odds? Roughly 1 in a million. Bill Gates experienced 1 in a million luck. Kent experienced 1 in a million risk. Same force. Same odds. Opposite outcomes. Here's where we go wrong. When someone succeeds, we call them brilliant. When someone fails, we call them careless. If your investment succeeds, it was a smart decision. If it fails, it was a stupid risk. But the truth is, success always includes luck. Failure often includes risk. We judge others by outcomes. We judge ourselves by intentions. That's not fairness. That's bias. This is why success can make you feel invincible, and failure can make you feel broken, when sometimes neither has anything to do with your character. As Morgan Housel wrote to his son, not all success is due to hard work, and not all poverty is due to laziness. Some are born into support, others into chaos. Some get opportunity, others get interruption. Recognizing luck doesn't cheapen success. Recognizing risk doesn't excuse failure. It creates humility and forgiveness, especially toward yourself. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. Success is never just skill. Failure is never just stupidity. Luck builds empires. Risk buries dreams. The only mistake is pretending they don't exist. We all believe we're different. We tell ourselves, if I just earn a little more, if I just reach that level, if I just get what they have, then I'll relax. Then I'll be satisfied. Then I'll stop chasing. But be honest with yourself for a moment. How many times have you already moved that finish line? The hardest financial skill isn't making money. It's learning when to stop wanting more. Because when more becomes the goal, there is no finish line, only exhaustion, fear, and regret. Enough is not about being poor. Enough is about knowing when more starts costing you what actually matters. At a party hosted by a billionaire, someone leaned over to a novelist and said, "You know the host, he made more money today than you made from your best-selling book in its entire lifetime." The novelist paused, smiled, and said, "Yes, but I have something he'll never have. Enough." That one word explains why some people sleep peacefully at night, while others with far more money don't. Now let's look at the dark side of never enough. There was a man, the most notorious Ponzi schemer since Charles Ponzi himself. For decades, he stole from investors. But here's the part most people miss. Before the fraud, before the scandal, before prison, he was already wildly successful. He ran a legitimate business as a market maker, matching buyers and sellers of stocks. That business alone earned $25 to $50 million every single year. He already had wealth, status, power, freedom, and yet he still committed fraud. Why? Because enough was never part of his vocabulary. We often think crime comes from desperation, from people who have nothing. But some of the most destructive financial decisions come from people who already have everything. They risk what they have to get what they don't need. And that's not ambition. That's blindness. At some point in life, many people reach a quiet but powerful position. They earn enough to cover every reasonable need and many of their wants. If you ever reach that point, remember this: the goalpost will keep moving if you let it. If your expectations rise at the same speed as your income, you'll feel no richer, no matter how hard you work. Social comparison is a game you can never win. There is always someone richer, younger, faster, luckier. The only way to win is not to play. Enough is not too little. Enough is realizing that endless hunger for more eventually leads to regret. Some things are never worth risking. Your reputation, your freedom, your independence, your family, your peace of mind. The best way to protect them is knowing when it's time to stop taking risks that can destroy them. History doesn't punish people for wanting a better life. It punishes people who never learn when to stop. Money is a tool, but without a sense of enough, it becomes a weapon you eventually turn on yourself. The most powerful word in money isn't more, it's enough. Most people think wealth is built with big moves, big salaries, big investments, big risks. But the truth is this: you don't need tremendous force to create tremendous results. If you're trying to build wealth and this topic matters to you, like this video now. It tells the algorithm this lesson deserves to reach more people like you. Here's the uncomfortable part. If I asked you to add 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, you'd answer instantly, 32. But if I asked you to multiply 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, most people would pause or guess. That pause is important because it reveals something about how our minds work. We understand linear growth, but compounding growth completely confuses us. And because we don't intuitively understand it, we underestimate what's possible. We misjudge where growth comes from, and we abandon strategies that actually work simply because they feel too slow. Compounding works like this. Small growth becomes the fuel for future growth. And when growth feeds on itself for long enough, the results don't just grow big, they start to look illogical. This is why compounding feels boring at first, and unbelievable later. It doesn't impress early, but it dominates over time, and money follows the same rule. Consider Warren Buffett. At the time this book was written, his net worth was about $84.5 billion. Here's the part most people never notice. $81.5 billion of that came after his 65th birthday. Let that sink in. Over 90% of his wealth was built when most people think the game is already over. Many books explain Buffett's success by calling him a genius investor. And yes, he is skilled. But that explanation misses the real secret. The biggest mistake we make is this. We attach all of Buffett's success to intelligence. But intelligence alone doesn't explain his wealth. If it did, then Jim Simons would be far richer. Simons compounded money at about 66% annually for decades, a return Buffett never came close to. Yet Simons' net worth was around $21 billion, far less than Buffett's. Why? Because Simons didn't start early. He found his investing stride around age 50. Buffett started as a teenager. Same game, different time horizons. Skill matters, but time matters more. So here's the shift you must make. Good investing is not about earning the highest returns. The highest returns are often risky, short-lived, impossible to repeat. Real wealth comes from reasonable returns, consistency, staying in the game for a very long time. Compounding doesn't need perfection. It needs survival. It needs you to keep going. That's when it runs wild. The danger is this. Because compounding doesn't feel powerful early, people ignore it and chase faster solutions. They switch strategies. They take reckless risks. They quit too soon. Not because they're foolish, but because the human brain is not built to understand exponential growth. And by the time compounding becomes obvious, it's often too late to recreate the time you lost. Warren Buffett's skill was investing, but his secret was time. Compounding doesn't reward brilliance. It rewards patience. Everyone talks about how to get rich, but almost nobody talks about how people lose everything they already made. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this Psychology of Money series, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks making money is the finish line, because today's chapter might save you more money than it ever helps you earn. Think about it. You've seen people who made a lot of money, then lost it, had a booming business, then collapsed, went viral, got rich fast, then disappeared. And maybe, deep down, you've feared this too. You don't just want money. You want money that lasts. Here's the core truth of this chapter. There are many ways to get wealthy, but there is only one way to stay wealthy. That way is survival. If we were forced to summarize money into one word, it wouldn't be growth, returns, or success. It would be survival. Because getting money and keeping money are two completely different skills. Getting wealthy usually requires taking risks, being optimistic, betting on big opportunities, putting yourself out there. But staying wealthy requires the opposite: humility, frugality, paranoia, a constant fear that what you have can be taken away. Getting money says, this will work. Keeping money says, what if it doesn't? And the people who last are the ones who respect that difference. Why does this matter so much? Because of compounding. Compounding doesn't reward brilliance, it rewards time. It's like planting an oak tree. 1 year shows almost nothing. 10 years shows progress. Several decades create something massive. But here's the catch. Compounding only works if you survive long enough. A single bad decision can erase decades of progress. And no gain is so great that it's worth wiping yourself out over. People love studying what Warren Buffett did right, how he picked great companies, how he found undervalued stocks, how he chose good managers. But what matters just as much is what he didn't do. He didn't panic during the 14 recessions he lived through, get carried away with debt, rely on borrowed money, burn himself out, and quit. He survived. And survival gave him longevity. Longevity made compounding unstoppable. Most people don't know this, but Buffett and Charlie Munger weren't alone in the beginning. There was a third partner, Rick Guerin. Rick was just as smart, just as skilled, just as capable of getting wealthy. But Rick was in a hurry. At some point, he became leveraged using borrowed money. When trouble came, he was forced to sell his Berkshire Hathaway shares to Buffett for under $40. Buffett and Munger waited. Rick couldn't. All three knew they'd be rich someday. Only two had the patience and paranoia to survive until that day arrived. This destroys a popular belief. If you're smart enough, you'll always bounce back. No. Even the smartest people fail when they use too much debt. They assume yesterday's success guarantees tomorrow's safety. They mistake luck for skill. As Nassim Taleb put it, having an edge and surviving are two different things. First requires the second. Avoid ruin at all costs. Applying a survival mindset comes down to three simple ideas. 1. Unbreakable beats impressive. More than big returns, you should want to be financially unbreakable. If you're unbreakable, you'll be around long enough for compounding to do the heavy lifting. 2. Plan, but plan for failure. Planning is important. But the most important part of any plan is assuming it won't go exactly as planned. Room for error isn't weakness. It's survival. 3. The barbell mindset. Be optimistic about the future because progress is real. But be paranoid about what could stop you from reaching it. Short-term paranoia keeps you alive. Long-term optimism gives you direction. The hardest mindset to maintain is being optimistic and paranoid at the same time. But money doesn't reward excitement. It rewards endurance. Most people don't lose because they were wrong. They lose because they couldn't survive being wrong long enough to recover. Getting wealthy is about how fast you can run. Staying wealthy is about how long you can endure. And in the end, the skill that matters most isn't brilliance, it's survival. Most people think successful people are right most of the time. They're not. In fact, many of them are wrong more often than you. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this Psychology of Money series, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who feels like they're failing just because things haven't worked yet. This chapter might completely change how you see failure. Think about how success usually looks from the outside. You see the billionaire, the hit product, the viral company, the overnight success, and you quietly assume they knew what they were doing. They rarely fail. If I fail this much, something must be wrong with me. But what you don't see are the 10 things that failed before the one that worked. So, when your plans don't work out, when your business struggles, when your ideas flop, you start thinking you're behind. You're not behind. You're just seeing only the winning tail of the coin. Here's the truth this chapter wants you to understand. You can be wrong most of the time and still make a fortune. Success, whether in money, business, investing, or life, is not about being right often. It's about being right big when you are right. Some people try 10 things. 9 fail. One works so well that it pays for all 9 failures and more. That's not perfection. That's survival math. Walt Disney is remembered as a genius, but before he became a legend, he was something else. A bankrupt entrepreneur, a struggling animator, a man constantly losing money. Disney's first studio went bankrupt. His films were monstrously expensive to make. They were financed under terrible terms. By the mid-1932s, Walt Disney had produced over 400 cartoons. Most were short, most were loved by audiences, and most lost money. Then came Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In just 6 months of 1938, it made $8 million more money than Disney had ever earned before, combined. That single win paid off every company debt, gave bonuses to key employees, bought a state-of-the-art studio in Burbank, turned Walt Disney from famous into a full-blown celebrity. In business terms, only 83 minutes mattered. Hundreds of failures didn't disappear, but they didn't matter anymore. That's what tails you win looks like. We love to call outcomes like this skill, or sometimes luck, but both words distract us from the real lesson. When we study role models, we zoom in on their wins and ignore their losses. That makes our own failures feel like proof we're doing something wrong. But what if they were wrong just as often as you? They failed just as painfully? The difference wasn't frequency, but scale. They didn't avoid losses. They survived them long enough for one win to matter. Look at companies you admire today. Apple is overwhelmingly driven by the iPhone. Amazon's growth comes largely from Prime and AWS. Amazon lost money on the Fire Phone. Massively. But it didn't matter, because AWS earns tens of billions of dollars. One tail rescued everything. That's why Amazon can afford mistakes. That's why Apple can kill products. That's why failure doesn't scare them. They're not betting on being right every time. They're betting on one big right. Here's the shift this chapter demands. Stop asking, why isn't this working? Start asking, what happens if one of these works far bigger than the rest? Failure is not a signal to quit. It's often just the cost of staying in the game. George Soros said it best. It's not whether you're right or wrong that matters. It's how much you make when you're right, and how much you lose when you're wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. But this only works if you survive the losses. If your failures wipe you out completely, leave you unable to try again, force you out of the game, then the winning tail never gets a chance to appear. The goal isn't reckless risk. The goal is endurance. Most people quit because they think failure means they're bad at the game. In reality, failure is often just proof you're still playing. Stay long enough, lose small. And when you win, win big. Most people say they want to be rich because they want to be happy. But when you ask what happiness really looks like, they don't describe yachts or mansions. They describe something much simpler. Waking up without an alarm, choosing how their day goes, being there when their family needs them, saying no without fear. What they're really chasing is control over their life. Here's the central truth of this chapter. The highest dividend money pays is control over your time. Not status, not luxury, not numbers on a screen. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want. That's real wealth. Money's greatest value isn't what it buys. It's what it frees. Morgan Housel once believed what many of us believe. As a college student, he wanted to become an investment banker. Why? because they earned a lot of money and he assumed that meant happiness. He landed a summer internship at an investment bank in Los Angeles. It was everything he thought he wanted, until day one. The hours were brutal. Leaving before midnight felt early. Missing a single day out of 7 wasn't allowed. Every minute of his life belonged to someone else. The job paid well. The work was intellectually stimulating, and yet it became one of the most miserable experiences of his life. The hardest part? He liked the work, but doing something you love, on a schedule you can't control, feels the same as doing something you hate. It was a 4-month internship. He lasted 1 month. That's when the illusion broke. Entrepreneur Derek Sivers once shared how he became rich. At 22, he worked a job in Manhattan, earning $20,000 a year. He lived cheaply, about $1,000 a month. He earned $1,800 a month and saved almost everything. For 2 years, he did nothing flashy. No eating out, no luxury, no status. When he saved $12,000, something changed. That amount was enough to cover his basic living costs, while playing a few music gigs a month. So he quit his job, and he never had a job again. When he finished the story, his friend waited for more. "So, what about when you sold your company?" Derek replied, "That didn't change much. It was just more money in the bank. The real difference happened when I was 22. Freedom came before the millions. We're taught a dangerous idea. That happiness comes later. After the promotion. After the raise. After the big win. But what if later never comes? What if you spend decades trading your life away for a future version of freedom that never arrives? Money without control is just a nicer cage. Think about what money actually protects you from. Taking a job you hate just to survive. Staying silent when you should walk away. Panicking during a medical emergency. Working long past when your body says stop. Money isn't about retiring rich. It's about retiring when you want, not when you have to. Even a little savings can buy massive freedom if it reduces your dependency on others. A writer once interviewed over 1,000 elderly Americans, asking them about the most important lessons life taught them. Not one said, "Work harder to buy nicer things." Not one said, "Choose your career based on how much it pays." What they valued was deep friendships, being part of something meaningful, time with their children. No one wished they'd spent more hours at the office. Time, not money, was what they missed most. Money can buy cars. Money can buy houses. Money can buy comfort. But the greatest luxury money offers is waking up each morning and saying, "I can do whatever I want today." That is freedom. Everyone thinks buying impressive things makes other people admire them. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Almost no one is thinking about you at all. If this Psychology of Money series is helping you see money differently, like the video and subscribe, because this chapter might save you years of chasing the wrong thing. Think about it honestly. You imagine owning that car. Fast, loud, clean, expensive. And in your head, it sends a message. I'm successful. I'm smart. I've made it. Look at me. You imagine people turning their heads. You imagine respect. You imagine admiration. Now flip the situation. When you see someone else driving a luxury car, do you think, "Wow, that person must be brilliant and important"? Or do you think, "If I had that car, people would think I'm cool"? That thought right there is the paradox. Here's the key idea. No one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. When you buy something expensive, you think you're signaling something about yourself. But everyone else is interpreting it through themselves. They're not thinking about you. They're imagining themselves in your place. That's the man in the car paradox. This doesn't stop at cars. It's the same with big houses, designer clothes, jewelry, watches, status brands. People walk through your home and don't think, "This person is admirable." They think, "If I lived here, people would respect me." Social media made this worse. We scroll past luxury all day, not admiring the person, but imagining ourselves in their position. Your possessions rarely upgrade your status. They mainly fuel someone else's imagination. This is where most people get trapped. They believe, if I look wealthy, people will respect me. But respect doesn't work that way. Respect isn't granted because of horsepower. It isn't earned through square footage. And it's not sustained by price tags. In fact, the people you want admiration from the most often respect restraint, not excess. Here's the shift that changes everything. You don't want to be noticed. You want to be respected. And money is terrible at buying that. Respect comes from humility, kindness, competence, empathy, self-control. These qualities cost far less and pay far more. Wealth is still worth pursuing, but using it to impress others is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. The real danger isn't buying nice things. The danger is spending your life trying to fill an emotional need with objects that were never designed to satisfy it. Many people become rich, yet stay invisible in the ways that matter. Money can buy powerful engines, bright lights, and loud signals, but respect travels quietly, and it never arrives in a luxury car. We judge success by what we can see. The car someone drives, the house they live in, the jewelry they wear, the lifestyle they post, because that's the only information available to us. We can't see bank balances. We can't see investment portfolios. We can't see retirement accounts. So we assume the visible things tell the full story. And slowly, without realizing it, we start chasing appearances instead of outcomes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Wealth is what you don't see. It's money not spent, assets not converted into stuff, options you still have. The moment you turn money into visible things, cars, clothes, luxury, you've stopped being wealthy with that money. We don't struggle to understand this because it's complicated. We struggle because we can't emotionally connect to what we can't see. Modern capitalism understands this perfectly. That's why fake it till you make it is an entire industry. Designer brands, luxury rentals, lifestyle financing, pay later everything. You can look rich long before you are and stay broke for a very long time doing it. Even celebrities fall into this trap. Singer Rihanna nearly went bankrupt after years of overspending. She later sued her financial advisor. His response was brutal but honest. Was it really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you end up with the things and not the money? The truth is, people need to be told. When most people say, I want to be a millionaire, what they really mean is, I want to spend $1 million. But spending $1 million is the exact opposite of being a millionaire. One investor wrote, "There's no faster way to feel rich than to spend money on nice things. But the way to actually be rich is to spend money you have and not spend money you don't. Feeling rich and being rich are not the same game." This is where we must separate two words people confuse every day: rich and wealthy. Being rich is about income. If someone drives an expensive car, they're probably rich. They earn enough to afford the payment even if it's financed. Rich people are easy to spot. They usually want to be seen. But wealth is hidden. Wealth is income not spent. It's delayed gratification. It's flexibility. It's freedom. Wealth gives you options. To walk away, to wait, to choose later. Most people believe that because they worked hard, they deserve to treat themselves. And sometimes that's true. But real wealth is built by turning down some treats today, so your future has more options tomorrow. That's hard. It requires self-control and almost no applause. Yes, some wealthy people spend a lot of money, but even then, what we see is their richness, not their wealth. We see the car, never the investments. We see the house, never the savings. We see the lifestyle, never the margin of safety behind it. The world is full of people who look modest but are wealthy, and people who look rich but live one paycheck away from collapse. So remember this: wealth is silent, rich is loud. Don't confuse what you see with what actually matters. Everyone thinks wealth starts with more money, a bigger salary, a smarter investment, a lucky break. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most wealthy people didn't get rich by making more, they got rich by keeping more. Quick favor before we go deeper. If you want clearer money thinking and fewer financial regrets, like this video and subscribe now. This chapter might completely change how you see saving. Think about how money usually feels. You earn it, you spend it, and somehow there's never enough left. You tell yourself, if I just earned more, things would be easier. But notice something strange. Many people earn more than you and still live paycheck to paycheck. Same stress, same pressure, same lack of control. So maybe income isn't the real problem. Wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is what remains after you spend. Saving isn't a bonus strategy. It's the foundation. In fact, saving is the only part of wealth building you fully control. You can't control the market. You can't control returns. You can't even fully control your income. But you can always control how much you keep. That's why someone with a modest income but a high saving rate can outgrow someone who earns more but saves nothing. Look closely at people with long-term financial stability. They don't always drive the flashiest cars. They don't chase every upgrade. They don't feel pressure to prove success. Their advantage isn't intelligence or luck. It's restraint. They spend intentionally. They leave room between earning and spending. And that gap, that quiet gap, is where wealth grows. Most people believe, I'll save once I earn more. But higher income often leads to higher lifestyle, not higher savings. New money finds new expenses. The real enemy of saving isn't low income. It's ego. Spending to impress. Spending to keep up. Spending on things that don't actually improve your life. The fastest way to save more money isn't to raise your income. It's to lower how much validation you buy. Here's the chain most people never notice. Saving grows when you spend less. You spend less when you desire less. You desire less when you care less about what others think. This isn't about deprivation. It's about freedom. You don't need a dramatic goal to save. You don't need a dream car or mansion as motivation. Saving without a plan to spend creates options. Time to think. Freedom to walk away. The ability to wait for better opportunities. That flexibility is the hidden return on saving. When you don't control your time, someone else will. And they'll use it however it benefits them, not you. The most expensive thing in the world isn't a luxury item. It's a life with no options. Savings quietly protect you from bad jobs, from rushed decisions, from trading peace for money you don't actually need. This is why financial freedom starts long before investing. Saving isn't about money. It's about control. Control over your time. Control over your choices. Control over your life. Make saving a habit, not a leftover. Everyone tells you the same thing about money. Be rational. Remove emotion. Think logically. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The people who try hardest to be perfectly rational often make the worst financial decisions. Think about your own life. You know you should save more. You know you shouldn't panic when markets drop. You know long-term investing works. Yet in real life, you get scared. You get impatient. You change plans. Not because you're stupid, but because you're human. Being rational means making the mathematically best decision on paper. Being reasonable means making a decision you can actually live with. Emotionally, mentally, and consistently. And money doesn't reward the smartest plan. It rewards the plan you can stick to. Imagine two investors. The first one follows a perfectly optimized strategy. High risk, high reward, no margin for fear. The second chooses a boring, slightly less efficient plan, but one that helps them sleep at night. When markets crash, the rational investor panics and quits. The reasonable investor stays calm and stays invested. Years later, who wins? Not the one with the best spreadsheet, but the one who didn't give up. We like to believe success comes from being smarter than everyone else. But money doesn't punish ignorance as much as it punishes behavior. You don't lose because you didn't know enough. You lose because fear, greed, or pride pushed you off your plan. So stop asking, what's the perfect decision? Start asking, what decision will I still be okay with when things go wrong? Lower returns with peace of mind beats higher returns you can't emotionally handle. In money, comfort is a strategy. If your financial plan requires you to act like a robot, it will fail the moment life becomes uncomfortable. Because discomfort always shows up. Being mostly reasonable beats being perfectly rational every single time. Most people believe history teaches us what will happen next. That if we study the past closely enough, we can predict the future. But here's the uncomfortable truth. History doesn't prepare us for the future. It prepares us to be surprised by it. Think about how we use history in real life. We look at past stock returns and say, this market always recovers. We look at old business models and say, this strategy has always worked. We look at successful people and assume their path can be copied step by step. And when something unexpected happens, a crash, a pandemic, a new technology, we say, no one saw this coming. But that's the problem. The most important events in history were always the ones no one saw coming. This chapter teaches a simple but powerful idea. History is the study of change, yet we often use it as a map of the future. That's a mistake. History doesn't show us what will happen. History shows us that things will change in ways we cannot predict. Events that have never happened before happen all the time. Morgan Housel gives a powerful example. Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing. Graham wrote The Intelligent Investor, a book many still call the investing Bible. But here's the detail most people miss. That book wasn't written once and left untouched. It was updated 4 times between 1934 and 1972. Why? Because the world kept changing. Markets changed. Rules changed. Human behavior changed. And even the man who created the perfect formula had to admit, there is no permanent formula. So ask yourself this question honestly. If that formula needed updates back then, do you really think it works the same way today? This chapter quietly destroys a dangerous belief. If I understand history well enough, I can avoid surprises. No, you can't. History doesn't eliminate surprises. History proves that surprises are inevitable. The biggest market crashes, the biggest technological breakthroughs, the biggest wealth-destroying and wealth-creating moments all came from things that had never happened before. So how should we use history? Not as a ruler to measure the future, not as a boundary for what's possible. Instead, use history as a reminder that change is constant, stability is temporary, and the unexpected is guaranteed. History doesn't tell us what will happen. It teaches us how fragile certainty really is. Here's the real danger. When people believe the future must look like the past, they take on too much risk, become overconfident, ignore uncertainty, and break when reality changes. The goal isn't to predict surprises. The goal is to build a life and financial strategy that survives them. Because in money and in life, the biggest moments are never the ones we prepare for. They're the ones we never saw coming. Can you survive your assets declining by 30%? Not recover, not win, just survive. Because if a single bad year can wipe you out, then you were never wealthy, you were just lucky. Most of us plan like this. Best case scenario, smooth growth, no surprises. We assume things will go mostly right, but real life doesn't care about your plans. Markets crash, businesses stall, salaries disappear, emergencies show up uninvited. And suddenly the question isn't, was I right? It's, can I stay alive long enough to be right later? Here's the real lesson of this chapter. The most important part of every plan is planning for your plan, not going according to plan. Room for error isn't about avoiding risk. It's about surviving risk. Because anything that isn't guaranteed is risky, and nothing about the future is guaranteed. Bill Gates understood this early. When Microsoft was still young, he insisted on keeping enough cash in the bank to pay 1 full year of salaries, even if zero money came in. That wasn't fear. That was power. That buffer meant Microsoft could survive mistakes, delays, and bad luck while competitors collapsed under pressure. Most people think room for error is for cowards, overly conservative people, those not confident enough. But the truth is the opposite. No risk that can completely wipe you out is ever worth taking. Because once you're out of the game, the odds no longer matter. Room for error does one thing incredibly well. It buys you time. And time is what allows compounding to work, odds to shift, luck to finally meet preparation. Charlie Munger said it best. The best way to achieve felicity is to aim low. Not low ambition, low fragility. Ask yourself honest, what-if questions. What if my investment drops 30%? What if income stops for 6 months? What if this takes longer than expected? If the answer is panic, the risk is too big. Volatility isn't the enemy. Fragility is. You don't save because you have a reason. You save because the future doesn't need your permission to surprise you. Because the most important part of every plan is planning on your plan, not going according to plan. Room for error isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being realistic. The future will surprise you, not because you're careless, but because uncertainty is unavoidable. The people who succeed aren't the ones who predict the future best. They're the ones who build lives, finances, and decisions that can survive surprises. Endurance beats brilliance. Staying in the game beats being right once. Everyone says, plan your life early, but nobody tells you this truth. The person making the plan won't be the person living the life. If you're building your future right now, like, subscribe, and share this, because this video might save you from building a life you'll outgrow. Think about who you were 5 years ago. Your goals were different. Your mindset was different. What excited you then might not excite you now. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. If I've changed this much already, why do I think I'll stay the same forever? Yet most people plan their finances, careers, and entire lives as if they are frozen in time. Long-term planning is hard not because the world changes, but because you change. Your desires change. Your values change. Your priorities change. Your definition of success changes. And the most dangerous assumption in financial planning is this: future me will want the same things I want today. That's almost never true. At 18, people choose careers for money. At 30, they want meaning. At 40, they want freedom. At 50, they want peace. At 20, someone wants a fast car. At 35, they want a safe family life. At 50, they want good health and quiet mornings. Same person, different desires. Research even shows that people massively underestimate how much they'll change between youth and old age. We think we're done evolving, but we're just getting started. We're taught, pick one path, stick to it forever, never change your mind. But that belief traps people in careers they hate, lifestyles they've outgrown, financial plans that no longer serve them, goals that no longer matter. Consistency without flexibility becomes a cage. The goal isn't rigid planning. The goal is flexible planning. Don't build a life that only works for one version of you. Build a life that can evolve. Instead of asking, what do I want for the rest of my life? Ask, what gives me options if I change? Money should buy freedom, not traps, not pressure, not regret. Some people don't fail financially. They succeed and still feel trapped because they achieved goals that no longer fit who they became. They didn't plan wrong. They just assumed they wouldn't change. The future isn't dangerous because it's unknown. It's dangerous because you'll become someone different inside it. So don't just plan for success. Plan for change. Plan for evolution. Plan for flexibility. Because the best financial plan isn't one that looks perfect on paper. It's one that still works when you're no longer the same person. Someone once said, if it's free, take it. But life doesn't work like that. Because the most expensive things in life don't cost money. They cost time. They cost peace. They cost freedom. They cost your future. And most people only realize the price after they've already paid it. If you care about financial freedom, mindset, and real wealth, not fake motivation, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with one person who needs a better relationship with money. We live in a world that promises us everything for nothing. Get rich fast, easy money, quick success, passive income with no effort. But here's the truth nobody likes to say. Nothing in life is truly free. Not money, not success, not happiness, not peace, not freedom. You might not pay with cash, but you will always pay with something. Let's be honest. We've all wanted shortcuts. We've all chased comfort. We've all chosen the easy option instead of the right one. Because it feels good in the moment. It feels safe. It feels painless. But later, we pay the price. This is the real lesson of nothing's free. Everything in life has a cost. But not every cost comes with a price tag. Some prices look like money. Others look like stress, regret, burnout, fear, time, lost opportunities, broken relationships, mental exhaustion, a life you don't enjoy. Some costs are silent. Some costs are delayed. Some costs don't show up until years later. Let's make it simple. Example 1, the easy money trap. Someone wants fast money. They chase scams. They chase shortcuts. They chase illegal paths. They chase fake investments. They get money quickly. But the hidden price? Fear of being caught. No peace of mind. No stability. No future security. No trust. So yes, they made money, but they paid with their peace. Example 2, the comfort life. Someone avoids risk, avoids learning, avoids growth, avoids discomfort. They choose comfort every time. The hidden price? A small life, limited options, dependence on others, regret, feeling stuck. Comfort wasn't free. It cost them their potential. Example 3, the work life illusion. Someone works non-stop, chases money only, ignores health, ignores family, ignores rest. They build wealth. The hidden price? Broken relationships, burnout, poor health, emotional emptiness. So yes, they got rich, but they paid with their life. Here's the dangerous belief. If it looks free, it is free. Wrong. If it looks free, it usually just means the price is hidden. Life never removes cost. It only changes the currency. Sometimes you pay with money. Sometimes you pay with time. Sometimes you pay with energy. Sometimes you pay with peace. Sometimes you pay with regret. So, the goal isn't to avoid paying. That's impossible. The real goal is this. Choose your price consciously. Pay now or pay later. Pay in discipline or pay in regret. Pay in effort or pay in frustration. Pay in learning or pay in ignorance. Because payment is guaranteed. Choice is optional. Here's the scary part. Most people don't lose because they fail. They lose because they chose the wrong price. They chose comfort over growth, speed over stability, pleasure over discipline, ease over progress. And years later, they wonder why life feels heavy. Nothing is free, but everything is a trade. And your future is built on the prices you agree to pay today. Everyone says, learn from successful people. But what if copying them is the exact thing destroying your future? Quick reminder. Like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who's trying to build a better life. This lesson will save them years of mistakes. We do it without thinking. We see people buying new cars, new clothes, new phones, luxury trips, big houses, and something inside us whispers, if they can do it, I should too. We copy their lifestyle. We copy their spending. We copy their choices. Not because it fits our life, but because it looks like success. But here's the truth. Not everyone is playing the same game. Some people are playing a short-term game. Look rich now. Feel good now. Enjoy now. Some people are playing a long-term game. Build slowly. Grow quietly. Win later. When you copy someone playing a different game, you don't get their results. You inherit their risks. Imagine two people. One is a young lawyer. He needs to look powerful. Expensive suits. Nice car. Luxury lifestyle. Because appearance helps his career grow. The other is a writer. He works in sweatpants. From a small room. With a laptop and silence. If the writer copies the lawyer's lifestyle, he spends money, but gains nothing in return. Same spending, different outcomes, different games. Seeing someone spend money doesn't mean they're winning. Seeing someone live big doesn't mean they're building wealth. Seeing someone look rich doesn't mean they are rich, because you see their purchases, but you don't see their debt, their pressure, their stress, their fear, their goals, their sacrifices. You only see the surface, not the cost. So the question is not, what are they doing? The question is, what game am I playing? Short-term comfort? Or long-term freedom? Fast pleasure? Or slow power? Status today? Or security forever? Your life doesn't need to look impressive. It needs to work. If you let other people's lives design your decisions, you'll spend your whole future chasing a life that was never meant for you. Copying the wrong game doesn't just slow you down, it quietly ruins you. Don't copy lives. Copy strategies. Don't chase lifestyles. Build systems. Don't follow people. Follow purpose. Play your game. At your pace. For your future. If someone tells you, everything will work out, the economy will grow, your investments will pay off, you probably nod and move on. But if someone says, a crash is coming, you could lose everything. Suddenly, you're listening. Heart alert. Brain activated. Why? Because bad news feels urgent. Good news feels optional. And that's the seduction of pessimism. Pessimism feels smarter. It feels more realistic, more responsible, more intelligent. Optimism sounds like hope. Pessimism sounds like preparation. And in money matters, fear of loss is stronger than hope for gain. We are wired to protect what we have before chasing what we could gain. That's why pessimism spreads faster than optimism, especially in finance. Imagine Japan in the late 1940s. The country was devastated after World War II. Cities destroyed. Industries collapsed. Food shortages so severe, people survived on less than 800 calories a day. Now imagine someone back then saying, "Don't worry. In a few decades, this country will become one of the largest economies in the world. Life expectancy will double. Unemployment will stay low. Prosperity will rise." They would have been laughed out of the room. Because optimism during disaster sounds foolish. But history proved the optimist right. Progress is slow and invisible. Disasters are loud and immediate. That's why setbacks feel more believable than growth. Here's something else. When the stock market rises 1%, it barely makes the news. When it falls 1%, it becomes breaking news. Red letters, urgent tone, dramatic music. Bad news sells. Good news whispers. Pessimists also make another mistake. They assume today's problems will continue forever. They look at a downturn and say, "This is the beginning of the end." But markets adapt. Businesses adjust. People innovate. The future is rarely a straight line from today. Here's the powerful shift. Optimism is not ignoring risk. It's believing that over time, progress compounds. Pessimism focuses on sudden pain. Optimism focuses on long-term growth. And here's the irony. Expecting disaster feels wise, but constantly expecting disaster can stop you from investing, building, and taking smart risks. You can be cautious without being hopeless. You can prepare for storms without believing the sky is always falling. Be careful. If you only consume negative financial news, your brain will slowly start believing collapse is normal. You'll delay investing. You'll hoard out of fear. You'll miss opportunities. Not because disaster happened, but because disaster felt more convincing. Pessimism sounds protective, but unchecked pessimism can quietly steal your future. Here's the truth. Progress is slow. Setbacks are loud, and your brain confuses loud with likely. The most successful investors are not blind optimists. They are realistic long-term optimists who understand that growth whispers while fear screams. We live in the most informed time in history, yet people have never believed so many wrong things about money. Before we go further, if you want to understand money in a way that gives you an unfair advantage, subscribe right now, because this lesson might completely change how you see financial advice forever. Now here's the strange truth. The more information we have, the more stories control us. Think about this. If I tell you, over 80% of active fund managers underperform the market long term. It sounds technical, distant, boring. But if I say, my uncle invested his life savings with a market genius and lost everything, suddenly it feels real. One is statistics, the other is a story. And your brain will remember the story, not the data. You don't make financial decisions based on spreadsheets. You make them based on narratives that feel believable. Here's what this chapter is really about. When the world is too complex to understand, we create simple stories to survive it. Money is complicated. Markets are confusing. The future is uncertain. So our brains do something clever. They replace complexity with a clean, emotional explanation. And once a story feels right, we believe it even if it's wrong, because stories reduce uncertainty. And uncertainty is uncomfortable. Look at financial bubbles. Before every crash, there was a beautiful story. Real estate never goes down. This new technology changes everything. This time is different. These stories weren't supported by perfect data. They were supported by emotional momentum. During the late 1990s tech boom, people didn't fully understand internet companies. But the story was powerful. The internet will change the world. That story was true. But the belief that every internet stock would make you rich, that was fiction. The story was stronger than the statistics, and people believed anything that supported the narrative. Here's why stories dominate numbers. Stories are easy to remember. Stories feel personal. Stories remove doubt. Stories give us someone to blame or someone to praise. Statistics require patience. Stories require emotion. And humans are emotional before they are logical. Even the smartest investors aren't immune, because believing a compelling story feels safer than admitting, I don't fully understand what's happening. Here's the dangerous part. Once you believe a story, you start filtering reality. You ignore facts that contradict it. You search for proof that supports it. You surround yourself with people who agree. Suddenly, you're not investing based on analysis. You're investing based on identity. And when identity mixes with money, losses become devastating because you're not just losing money, you're losing a belief. So what do? You don't eliminate stories. You question them. Instead of asking, "Is this story exciting?" ask, "What would have to be true for this to fail?" Instead of, "Everyone says this is the future," ask, "What does history say about certainty?" Instead of chasing convincing narratives, build systems that survive uncertainty. Diversify. Stay patient. Avoid extremes. Respect probability. Because statistics may be boring, but boring usually wins. Here's the quiet truth most people don't realize. You will believe something that isn't true at some point. We all will. The goal isn't to become perfect. The goal is to design your financial life so that when you're wrong, you survive. Because survival beats brilliance every single time. In money, the most dangerous words are not, "This is risky." They are, "This story makes sense." If I could only give you 14 money rules for the rest of your life, and you had to ignore everything else, these would be the ones. Because most people don't lose money from being stupid. They lose it from ego, impatience, and trying to look rich. This is the chapter where everything comes together. Before we start, if you want simple money lessons that actually make sense in real life, subscribe now, because this one might be the most important of them all. This is the chapter where everything comes together. Imagine you gave a 4-year-old a jar of sweets. If they eat everything today, tomorrow is empty. If they save some, tomorrow feels safe. That's money. Not math, not intelligence, just behavior. Chapter 19 of The Psychology of Money is basically the final reminder of how to behave with money so you don't destroy your future trying to impress today. Let's break it down in the simplest way possible. It's never as good or as bad as it looks. When things go well, stay humble. When things go bad, be gentle with yourself, because luck and risk are always involved. If you win, it's not all you. If you lose, it's not all your fault. Focus on what you can. Control your behavior. Less ego equals more wealth. Wealth is what people don't see. It's not the car. It's not the watch. It's not the Instagram post. Wealth is the money you didn't spend. It's saying, "I could buy this, but I won't." Saving money is simply your income minus your ego. Manage money so you can sleep. The best financial plan isn't the one that makes the most money. It's the one that lets you sleep peacefully at night. If your investments make you anxious, it's too much risk. Peace is profit. Time is the superpower. If you want to become a better investor, don't try to be smarter. Just stay longer. Time makes small gains huge. Time also makes big mistakes smaller. The longer you stay in the game, the easier it gets. Many things will go wrong. That's normal. You don't need to win every time. You can be wrong half the time and still become wealthy. Think of it like planting seeds. Some grow, some die. But if enough grow, you win. Money buys freedom, not things. The real value of money is control over your time. Doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want. That's the highest return money can give. Be kind, not flashy. Most people don't care about your expensive stuff. You think they admire your car. They don't. They're thinking about their own problems. If you want respect, be kind. If you want admiration, be humble. Flash fades. Character compounds. Save. Just save. You don't need a reason to save. Yes, save for goals, but also save for the unknown, because life will surprise you. Savings turn panic into patience. Success has a price. Nothing good is free. In money, the price is uncertainty, doubt, fear, regret. If you expect the road to be smooth, you'll quit. But if you know discomfort is part of the deal, you'll stay. Leave room for error. Always give yourself a gap. Don't invest every dollar. Don't take maximum risk. Room for error is what keeps you alive long enough for compounding to work. Endurance creates wealth. Avoid extreme decisions. Your goals will change. Who you are today is not who you'll be in 10 years. If you make extreme financial decisions now, future, you might regret them. Stay flexible. Like risk, but fear ruin. Risk is good. Risk pays you over time, but ruin losing everything is different. Never take a risk that removes your ability to play again. The goal isn't to win once. The goal is to stay in the game. Know the game you're playing. Not everyone is playing your game. Some people want fast money. Some want safety. Some want status. If you copy someone playing a different game, you'll lose. Define your game, then ignore the noise. Respect the mess. Smart people disagree about money. That's normal, because everyone wants different things. There is no single right answer. There's only what works for you. Money isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about staying humble when you win, staying calm when you lose, saving more than you show, and playing your own long game. Don't eat all your sweets today. Save some for tomorrow. That's wealth. Think about it. If your income doubled tomorrow, would your lifestyle double too? Most people don't struggle because they earn too little. They struggle because every raise becomes a reason to upgrade everything. Bigger house, better car, new habits, new pressure. The finish line keeps moving. The real secret isn't earning more. It's stopping the goalpost from moving. Wealth is what you don't spend. Independence is what you build quietly while nobody is clapping. Saving isn't about deprivation. It's about creating options. And options create freedom. The author shares how his parents lived two very different financial lives. First, they were poor. Later, his father became a doctor at 40, and their income improved dramatically. But here's the part that matters. Their lifestyle barely changed. Why? Because they were already used to living below their means. After 20 years of disciplined saving, his father made a bold move. He quit. Not because he had to, but because he could. He had saved enough to say, "I want to work on my own terms now." That's real wealth. The same pattern showed up in his own life. He and his wife started with entry-level jobs, entry-level pay, a modest apartment, a decent car, nothing flashy. As income grew, spending didn't grow at the same speed. Their savings rate increased. Their options increased. Their stress decreased. They didn't chase luxury. They chased flexibility. Most people think investing success comes from picking the right stocks, timing recessions, predicting the next big industry. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You can afford to not be the best investor. You cannot afford to be a bad one. The strategy wasn't about brilliance. It was about high savings, extreme patience, long-term optimism. Focus on what you can control. Ignore what you can't. You don't need a specific reason to save. You save so you don't panic. You save so you don't sell investments at the worst time. You save so unexpected life events don't control your decisions. Saving protects compounding, and compounding protects your future. The goal isn't to look rich. It's to feel unshakable. Plans change. Strategies evolve. Even the author admits his investment approach has changed over time. But if your foundation isn't independence, more money will only create more pressure. Income without discipline is just delayed stress. True wealth is the ability to wake up and choose. Not because you're lucky, but because you prepared.